Okay. Mrs. Kelly, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes.
Oops, I'm sorry. I jumped down. Excuse me. That's the first thing I looked at. All right, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry about that.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wanted to welcome all of you that are in attendance. Our staff that is regularly here on each month. All of our new Planning Commission members. For many of us, this is our first meeting. This is my first meeting to wrap the gavel. So I appreciate your patience with me and with each other, and also just to welcome those of you from the municipalities that are joining us today and our guests. We look forward to a productive session. Now we'll do the roll call, if we would, please. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Eastep.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. DeLozer.
Here.
Mr. Fallen.
Here.
Mrs. Luke.
Yeah, here.
Mrs. Sheets.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. This is our opportunity for public comment. That can include those of you who are here from the municipalities or just anyone from the public. And if you would have something to share, I would ask that you would stand and use the microphone and introduce yourself, please. Is there any public comment?
Yes, sir.
My name is Henry Founds. I represent Frankstown Township. And I just had a couple follow-up questions. I know there's been a lot of public criticism at the last couple meetings, and I'm not here to pile on. I just looking forward to moving forward with this board. But I did have a question about audits. Was there, when was the last time an audit was done for the office or for the commission? I'm not sure if they're done regularly, like stated in the bylaws or not. And if they are not, I would ask if they start to be done.
That's a great question that I sure don't know the answer to. Anyone from staff aware of that?
There hasn't been.
So,
There hasn't been.
as far as you know, not recently.
Not since Dave's been there. So 15, 16 years.
Okay, so a number of years, let's just say. So that's an excellent recommendation. We certainly need to review our bylaws and be compliant, but even if it's not called out, still a great idea.
Right.
So,
And I'm not here to ambush anybody or like that. I just have these questions. I believe the treasurer is responsible for having a committee within the bylaws to address these things. And even a financial statement, to the member municipalities would be great, since it is, local shares and we pay into it, it would be nice to see. So I could take back to my board of supervisors how their money is being spent and making sure people are good stewards with that money.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And on another note, since I'm up here, I was at the GAC meeting and it seemed to be productive in the fact that there was a lot of conversation, but not productive because of the lack of quorum. And I know there's some pretty good ideas that were put out to improve that process in the future. Could you tell me if anything's been started yet, or if the bylaws for the GAC have been addressed to help accommodate a better flow, better workflow for the GAC?
Not to put staff on the spot, but any staff discussion with that as it relates to GAC attendance or bylaws?
To my knowledge, Dave was to speak with our solicitor about that and to get further clarification on a few of the things that were necessary for in terms of like having in-person voting. Dave said that was necessary, that we couldn't do email voting or voting by phone. So the same thing with getting a quorum. So he had to reach out to our solicitor for a couple of things, like points of clarification, but beyond that, I'm not sure what has developed.
We received an email from Dave that he did speak with the solicitor, and the way I understood that email, and there might be some convolution there, there's a larger event that he's planning for the GAC, which he is hoping that will bring more attendance to the GAC, so advertising that, getting that out to the municipalities in hopes that we can bring a quorum. From what I understand, there's two separate entities there. So we will need a quorum to change the bylaws, but that's something we're endeavoring to do.
Right, okay. I know it had been suggested, I can't recall who suggested it, maybe getting a jump on it, but I think you don't need a quorum to start, the re-framework. So when you do get a quorum together, which seems to be rare, you can kind of strike while the iron's hot and maybe put a product in front of them to vote on. Just a suggestion.
Let me add that part of the discussion was that that the solicitor, we asked the director to talk to the solicitor about the feasibility of changing the bylaws so that the municipality, sometimes it's only 3 members, 3 supervisors, for example, could designate an official representative from that municipality to attend the meeting with the authorization to vote on prescribed issues.
I think that would directly affect my municipality because I am the representative that they send, but I don't get a vote because I'm not an elected official. One of the reasons they hired me is so they wouldn't, their presence wouldn't be required at some of these meetings that are harder for them to attend.
And that might be the key solution to
I
the
believe
issue.
so because I think there was a count made afterwards and everybody present at the GAC, there were enough municipal representatives, elected and non-elected, that there would have been a quorum. So I think that's good evidence of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other public comment at this time?
I'd just like to ask that there be special attention to the stormwater plan for the Madden Woods subdivision. Gaysport recently had some severe flooding. The stormwater plan that we have has been stalled off. Our impoundment dam needs a phase 2 study. We don't know what the results of that will be. I could just kill the whole idea. We need money for that phase 2, and the CDBG money is kind of tied up right now. We're trying to get that into it, but it hasn't been very successful so far. So for the people of Gaysport, please take special attention to the stormwater development and the Madden Woods subdivision. Thank you.
Do you mind, while you're at the mic, would you mind introducing yourself and what the municipality you're representing?
Regis Nail. Okay, I'm from Hollidaysburg, and Gaysport's one of the neighborhoods. Okay, that has been flooded badly.
Yes.
And the development up in Blair Township has increased stormwater flow over the past 30 years, probably 50 times more than it was 30 years ago. And flooding in Gaysport has just got more frequent and more severe. And they have a plan to put in a large stormwater detention pond there. But it's been stalled, and we're still hoping that it'll go through, but they get real nervous, especially last year. There was a bad flood.
And did you have a specific recommendation for the commission as it relates to the comments we would make for Mattern Woods?
I just, it's pretty obvious to the people in Gaysport that over the past 30 years, stormwater, the stormwater development plans for development up there have not been adequate because the flooding has continually just gotten worse and worse. And part of that probably, is that the stormwater plans weren't adequate up there. And we would just ask that special attention be paid to that. And this development is right at the corner between Blair Township and Hollidaysburg, and it will have a direct effect, real quick effect on the flooding in Gaysport.
Mm-hmm. This might be a good opportunity for those of you who are new commissioners, and I will just give you a 1 year's version of my experiences. So, we're going to be presented today with the development application for Mattern Woods that Mr. Nail spoke about. We essentially, as the commission, I think, have not a significant amount of power, but we can accept the application as it is presented. We can potentially reject the application for some, usually failures of something that is significantly missing in that application. And then, where we probably have a little bit more impact on a regular basis is to recognize concerns and or maybe things that maybe have not been addressed, and then to generally we would approve it with comments, approve it with concerns. This would be a good example where we ultimately aren't the final approval on this. The Borough of Hollidaysburg would really be the final approval, I believe, on this.
It says this development in Blair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
It's
Excuse
Blair
me.
Township.
Yeah, excuse me. So Blair Township would be the final approval. If we throw some flags up and concerns that say we feel maybe the stormwater provisions aren't adequate, or whatever, is there a need to be a retention, etc., that would go back to Blair Township, and they at that point could choose to, if they wish, ignore our recommendations or concerns and just approve it themselves, or they could potentially go back to the developer and say, hey, we've looked at this, Blair Planning looked at this, we've got concerns as it relates to the way this stormwater is going to be handled. We would like to see something changed. In most cases, we're just an extra layer of protection, I believe, for the townships and municipalities. And it also, if Blair Township chooses to put the blame on us, because essentially, if they send it back to engineers, that's going to have a higher cost, and that's going to have additional time, and the developer would not like to pay more, and the developer would like to stall. So, and I'm not suggesting that this is necessarily the instance that we should act upon, but that's been my experience of how we would respond to a concern like this, and then hopefully, it would get at least a second or third set of eyes on it as well. So,
Right. That's my understanding too. Yes. Very good explanation.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thanks
Thank
for providing a comment. Other public comment at this time? Hearing none. County Commissioner, Amy, anything for you to speak to today? And if you would, please. Thank you.
Excuse me, we didn't do the number 2 for the approval of minutes.
Oh, goodness. I'm really out of sorts today. I apologize. So, since we've got Amy at the microphone, if you don't mind, let's allow her presentation, and then we'll go back to minutes. And thank you, Rhonda,
Okay.
for keeping me straight.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to welcome all the new members of the board, or the commission. We commissioners are very happy to have you all on board, and we look forward to all sorts of good comments and thoughts and questions from you, and helping to bring Blair County good things into the future. I do have two issues though that I want to raise for you guys to be on the lookout for, I guess is the best way to put it. As you may or may not know, we commissioners have been involved since early 1990s in a farmland preservation program where we pay money that it partially grant money and partially taxpayer funded money for rights of way to make certain that certain areas that are farms continue to be farms in perpetuity, so that they will always be farms. And in our search for land for the prison, we discovered a couple of things. First of all, Blair County has a lot of toxic waste dumps, unfortunately. But there were a couple of farmers that had offered to sell us their land, and of course, we don't want to take away any of our farmland. So we declined from buying any of those. But we are seeing situations where solar farms and other types of development are coming in and getting into agricultural lands. So I recognize that the commission has very little power, but if we can be on the lookout for those and maybe encourage our municipalities to think about ordinances and things to impact the development of those types of uses that are negative impacts upon our farmland, which farmland's important because that's our biggest industry. I would like to encourage municipalities to think about those types of ordinances, and when these solar farms come before the Planning Commission, to raise lots of questions and issues that need to be addressed for those things. And then, and just for your information, in the past however many years, I guess it's about 30 years since this program has been in force, the county has preserved 9,500 acres of farmland, which are encompassed on 65 different farms. So we're hoping this year to add 2 more farms and get over 10,000 acres. That would be fantastic. So we'll see how that goes. And then the other issue that I wanted to talk to you about, and this is just a question for anybody that happens to know about it. I got a text from one of my fellow commissioners this morning saying, "Do you know anything about this electric grid project?" And I'm like, I don't. So I don't know if it's something that's coming before the board or not. I don't know if anybody even knows about it. My understanding is that at this point it's just a concept, that there's not really a certainty that it'll come through Blair County, but it's a possibility. And again, be thinking about how that might impact us and the questions that might be asked. Thank you, and thank you for your willingness to serve. We all appreciate that.
Just ask a quick question. Something that statewide we're seeing a rise of is the proposal for data centers.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
And we're not immune to that in Blair County. There's already talks of it in a couple places. I want to know, are we, so what our job is to review these things, to provide an advisory review for the municipalities on whether these things are consistent with our adopted countywide comprehensive plan. And so something like that, like what you're saying, the preservation of and conservation of agricultural lands, that's in our comprehensive plan. So I think we've been seeing a lot of solar farms come through. I think the next big wave of that is going to be data centers. Are we applying the same level of scrutiny? Like, are we, ensuring that these environmental impacts are extended to our most vulnerable, farms in Blair County, which is our most, vulnerable industry?
Right, and actually, I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. Yes, what the Planning Commission can do is limited. We do have the plan, but and we obviously want to stick to it, but I think part of what my request, what I'm urging is that we contact our municipalities, because they're the ones that actually can make these decisions and pass ordinances that might require certain things in order to preserve those farmlands. So everybody here is a representative of a municipality, you live in a municipality, to try to encourage your supervisors or borough council people or city managers to be thinking about these things and maybe looking into ordinances. I know that most the county commissioners have an association, the township supervisors have an association, the boroughs have an association, and there are various suggested ordinances and things that exist out there that we can help learn from other communities that are similarly situated. So I just want to encourage that and encourage you folks to all be, when you see these plans come before you, ask those questions. You know, how will it impact our agriculture? How will it impact, you know, the neighborhoods, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Working backwards now on our agenda, there were only 3 of the planning commissioners present at the prior meeting. And ideally, I wouldn't be the one to make a motion or second, but those 2 of you that were at that meeting, do you have any concerns or additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda. At this time, we'd like to welcome Jordan Whitmer, who is here to present from HRG.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here this morning. It's good to see some familiar faces that I've got to know the last couple of years working with you guys here with HRG. My name is Jordan Whitmer. I'm one of the CAP coordinators with HRG that works with the Southern Alleghenies Countywide Action Plan. That is the Blair County, Cambria, Fulton, Huntington Cooperative to help impact Chesapeake Bay with you guys. So here for a quick presentation and can answer questions afterwards. So here's today's brief agenda. We'll go over what the CAP is, give an overview, HRG's role. We'll kind of look back on 2025, some of the funding successes from the last grant agreements, where we're going, and what we're seeing changes coming from DEP as we get to a new grant agreement, and then we'll leave some time in the end for questions. So what is the CAP? So the CAP is a countywide action plan. It is specific to each county that is inside the Chesapeake Bay. So there's 43 counties inside the Chesapeake Bay. 34 of those have an adoptive countywide action plan. It extends under EPA's WIP, which is a watershed implementation plan that looks to mitigate and minimize the amount of sediment, nitrogen, and phosphorus entering the Chesapeake Bay. Think of it as a pollution diet. Right now, we're loading too much of those pollutants into the watershed, and we're trying to minimize that down. Just like the Surgeon General says we should be eating 2,000 calories a day. It's pretty much the same mindset mentality. So we have these initiatives, we have these goals to get BMPs on the ground to do that. So under that WIP, we have the countywide action plan. And Blair County's looks different from Cambria's. And Cambria's looks different from Huntington's. And Huntington's looks different from Fulton's. It's very specific to what your needs are inside Blair County. A lot of the newest discussions have been stormwater, as we've talked about here today. But a lot of it goes back to agriculture and preserving farmland and getting BMPs in the ground that can help achieve farmer efficiency to help save money, as well as reduce the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus going down into the Chesapeake Bay. Like I said, every county plan looks a little bit different. There's no right or wrong answers, but we're here as the CAP coordinator to help facilitate those conversations, get partners, whether at the federal level, state level, or nonprofits, to get these projects in the ground. So here's kind of the snapshot overview of the groups that we tend to work with. We have our MS4 communities, we we have our non-MS4 communities, we have wastewater treatment plants and facilities, as well as agricultural BMPs. Anything that can relate to water quality that can go reduce reductions is eligible for the cap. That could be acid mine drainage reclamation projects to reduce acidity and loading. As long as we can tie some sort of sediment or nitrogen or phosphorus reduction with that, DEP says that's awesome, because we do have a lot of issues with AMD even here in Blair County. Sugar Run is one that I can think of right now off the top of my head. Here's just some abbreviations. I know not everyone is an expert or well known. Everything in this world is abbreviations, and it can be nauseating. So CAP, Countywide Action Plan, it's in Chesapeake Bay Watershed in Pennsylvania. TMDL, that's the prescribed diet to help clean up the watershed. And total maximum daily load, it's essentially the pollution diet that we're going in here. One of the more exciting things that I'd like to report on for Blair County specifically is we just got Blair County snapshot back from DEP on Friday, and Blair County has successfully reduced the amount of phosphorus they need loading into the Chesapeake Bay. So that's the first big checkbox that we can kind of hang our hat on and say the things, the initiatives and the actions that Blair County and the Conservation District and all the partners that they work with, it's working, it's successful, and things are moving in the right direction. So how do we actually achieve these goals? And there's two ways that we go about this. We have this Chesapeake Bay model that looks at it as, okay, we know we have all this farmland, we have all this urbanized area, we have all this forested area. They've come up with a really intricate way to model these watersheds and get an idea of how much loading is coming from them based off their existing land use. They assume worst case scenario, and then we have to report existing BMPs that are already on the grounds, feed those into the system, and get those reductions in. Another way we do that is by building more BMPs, which takes time, which takes permitting, which takes funding. And that's what we can help with, and that's what we do help with Blair County and some of these other counties. But a big thing is going and getting these BMPs that are on the ground that maybe a farmer installed on their own. We talk a lot about grass buffers and forested buffers along our watersheds to make sure we're not running off a lot of nutrients from cropland, whether that's from manure-derived nutrients or urea, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So we try to get as many BMPs reported into the system as well as build these. I think this is going to be one of the more important ones we can look at today. Here are the eligible BMPs that can be funded for by the CAP, and there's a lot of them. The ones highlighted in red are the ones that DEP says these are the ones we want to see. They have the best dollar into the BMP to get reductions back out in the system. So for agricultural BMPs, a lot of it's nutrient management. As an ag services person with HRG, I read a lot of Ag 38 plans and help farmers put manure and nutrients on their cropland to make sure that we're being efficient with their time and their nutrients. A lot of ag BMPs we can put there, but there's a lot of eligible stormwater and urban BMPs as well. Wet ponds and wetlands. There's a lot of money to help retrofit existing stormwater BMPs, bioretention, rain gardens, bioswales, filter strips, conservation landscaping practices, which is essentially conventional turf grass back to meadows, urban stream restoration, urban forest planting. There's a lot of different prescriptions that we can go with, and every county has a different idea on what they would like to do. But these are just some of the eligible BMPs that can be funded through with the CAP. And then for coordinator roles, what can we do? We wear a lot of different hats, and we can help out in a lot of different ways. And each way we help every county is different. Blair County Conservation District and Donna Fisher are impeccable at their jobs. Donna is amazing, and she has a great support group and her staff underneath her, and it is an absolute privilege to get to work with her. If I could do more in the county, that'd be great, but she has it under control, and we're here to help count the beans, help with the administrative tasks that Donna, I know, wished she had the time to do, but she just doesn't with all the other things she has to do from DEP, the State Conservation Commission that they have going down through here. So we help provide technical assistance. That can be something such as mapping, giving out preliminary ideas of how to mitigate problems for farmers or for stormwater solutions in municipalities. Attend site visits, pre-construction meetings, scoping visits, assist with landowners as they're talking about different grants and what those might look like and how we can get from cradle to grave through the grant process. Present at meetings such as these today help be the buffer between DEP and them, get them out of the weeds sometimes where they might just not have the time to attend these meetings, and give them the snapshot of, here's how the conversation went, here's where it's going, and this is how we expect things to be changing going on. When we do a lot is good cop, bad cop as well, is working with partners that maybe have funding and are wasting time and not getting things done, and say, hey, we have a deadline, we need to hit this deadline, and we can be the bad guys and say, if you don't get it spent, you're going to lose your funding and your project's going to go belly up. And do you really want that to happen? There's a lot of stuff we can do, and it's not just limited to just these things. Every county is a little bit different, but we're here to help in whatever capacity that is needed. But enough of that. I want to signpost the successes of the Blair County Conservation District and their partners. At the end of the day, this is their program. We want them to be the forward-facing towards the public. We want them to get all the recognition, all the awards, and all the respect that they should be getting from people in the community, people from DEP, State Conservation Commission, and other groups. So here's some of the accomplishments that happened in 2025. As a CAP coordinator, we did help facilitate what we call our Watershed Specialist Consortium. The Watershed Specialists are kind of less loved by DEP than they have been 25 years ago when they originally brought this program together. So we brought 12 watershed specialists from 12 different counties and said, what are your grievances? What are your gripes? What do you need help with? What do you need to help do your job better? We took some of that information, took it back to the State Conservation Commission, DEP, and said, hey, this is where these technicians need some help at. And we're trying to work with them to get them the support they need from them and PACD. One of the big exciting things, which we talked about this morning, was the Growing Greener grant that Blair County Conservation District was able to receive for all these manure storages. They pretty much wrote the grant themselves. We had a little bit of back-end work, just making sure everything looked good, formatting looked good, and they were successfully awarded $624,955 for waste storage facilities to design, permit, construct these things in Blair County. This is monumental to these operators. It's great for water quality, and it's great for on-farm efficiency. And then process the 2025 milestone report. I'm sure some of you here have seen that and have looked through that and have given us comments back. And for those of you that have, thank you. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot to look at, but these milestone progress reports at DEP are just letting them know work is being done in Blair County. And there's a lot of people here that are galvanized and motivated to get that work done. And then finalizing 2026 block grant application, we are now in a new 5-year agreement moving forward. And Blair County has their next round of projects that are getting ready to get put in the ground. I wanted to put this number up on here because this is the amount of money that Blair County has received through the last grant agreement from 2022 to 2025. $848,000 is a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, especially looking back at 2022, 2023, and some of those previous years beforehand. The amount that they got was $100,000, $150,000, dependent upon each county. But DEP had a lot of federal funds that they said there'd be great use to input these funds into Chesapeake Bay. And Blair County was one of the ones that was lucky to receive some of those funds. We work with a lot of counties. A lot of counties struggle to spend their funding. And on this slide, I want to break this down. Blair County's been amazing at identifying projects, getting them ready to go, permit, design, constructability, getting a contract ready to go, and get them in the ground. Of that $848,000, they have spent $783,000, meaning there's $65,000 left to be spent by June 30th. And Donna Fisher has a plan to get that done in the ground. She has it ready to go, it's earmarked, she's just waiting to cut the checks. There's a lot of counties that are not like that right now. We are struggling to spend their funding by this June 30th date, because if you don't spend it, you lose it, and you don't get it back. Again, this is about the Conservation District. As a CAP coordinator, I'm here to help them in whatever role that they need. But the money is one of the big things that shows how successful this program has been. And a lot of the projects that they've spent funding on is stream restoration, cover crop incentive programs for farm operators, riparian buffer incentives, and cattle grazing projects. And now they're moving into manure storages and other bigger, more structural ag BMPs. So looking ahead to 2026 and beyond for the next 5-year grant agreement. The 2026 award is $308,000. Again, a very healthy chunk of money that is going to help pay for BMPs that can make water quality better, not only for Blair County, but the Chesapeake Bay as a whole, and it's impacting landowners. The new minimum allocation you can get is $200,000, which is nice. It helps the counties make their programs more robust. But if you can show DEP that there is a need for more money, they will award it, and they will give you more than that $200,000. There's been some adjustments to the timeline with grant periods. Growing Greener and the Countywide Action Plan block grants have always overlapped each other. So it's this conversation of how are we going to fund these projects, how they're going to get in the ground, and DEP has finally listened to some of the gripes that we've given them, and they've adjusted Growing Greener's timeline with the CAP block grant. So now when Growing Greener gets awarded and announced, we know. We can then adjust the block grant applications needingly so we can get this money spent across better. And here are some of the newer interests for BMPs. We talked a lot about urban stormwater already this morning. That's one of the areas that DEP would like to see more money go into is for these stormwater BMPs. Rain gardens, conservation landscaping, and then impervious cover removal projects. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Jordan, where that section was where you had new interests listed at the bottom, is that through the life of the 2026, the whole 5-year
Yep, that's
plan?
correct.
So if we have opportunities in municipalities or at the county, say for instance a rain garden, is that something that we would just connect with you and also Donna's group to put in?
That's correct. I would reach out to Donna first. As the CAP coordinator, we're not here to tell Donna and her staff how to spend their funding.
Right.
We're here to help them facilitate their needs and wants. And I know we've had conversations with Donna. They have rain gardens on their 2026 block grant for the parking garage
So I
here.
was just gonna say.
So, we're already working towards that goal of getting some stormwater BMPs in here. And a rain garden is just a drop in the bucket. It's just the first step to say, hey, look, DEP, we're going this route to make them happy. But have the conversation with Donna. It's at the end of the day, it's their program. We're here to help advise and get things started to finish as needed. But that's the first place to look at. And if they want to go down that pathway, as a CAP coordinator, we can come out, we can take a look there, and we can give a preliminary cost opinion of, okay, if you want to do this, awesome. Here's a quick mock plan sketch, and the most important thing, here's how much we think it's going to cost. So that way we can take that and plug it into Growing Greener, or the CAP block grant application, or whatever, it could be SRBC consumptive use grants. Whatever funding source it might fit best to get it done, we can shove it into. But we just need to identify those projects first and then make sure Blair County is on board for it.
I do have one question. I think that there's, I'm assuming the 2 projects out at Legion Park and the Blairmont the golf course, they're both your projects, right? That was funded through this?
They're the ISC's project.
Yeah.
I'm the vice chair of that committee. It's the Intergovernmental Stormwater Committee.
Okay, that has nothing to do with this?
We have the
I think our goals
one,
overlap. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
A lot. I think our goals overlap.
they do.
But they're just kind of delayed in getting our permit requirements out. I believe next permit cycle is going to be the volume management, volume reduction, but that's not official yet, so we're just kind of guessing what our next projects have to be at the ISC. Sorry.
Some of those projects do overlap. Some of those projects are big logistical multi-year projects that are cost a lot of money. There's already grant sources secured for those. They are using the block grant if they have a funding gap and they need some additional funding to make sure those projects continue. That's what the block grant kind of helps with a lot of times too, is they have $300,000 from ACAP for this farm project and $200,000 from NRCS for equip funding. We need $60,000 to get it over the finish line to get it done. That's where the block grant can come in. So the block grant's really flexible. It can help get some of these projects that maybe need an extra push to get across the finish line to get them funded. But yeah, some of those projects are on these lists.
Yeah. I'm just surprised about how many people asked me out at Legion Park what that project was. And basically they thought they were digging a detention pond there, but that was just a storage facility. I think that it wasn't publicized very good, or the people didn't know what was going on out there. And I think they were just using that for a site fill when they brought the dirt, it was easier to bring the dirt over there than truck it out.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Well, there were plans for someone to receive that. That was delayed, so it did not go as planned.
Yeah, I'd heard
So
that.
they had to store it on site and then truck it out. That
Yeah.
was not the original plan.
Okay. But like I say, I think I know that from what Regis said about the stormwater and stuff like that, Gaysport and that, I think there wasn't very much publicity on what they were doing there and how it was going to help things. That was just my observation.
I just have a question. Is there any consideration to obtaining additional funding with DCNR in reference to the rain gardens and the different community parks across the
Yeah,
county?
oh yeah, there's whatever grants, we have a whole list, it's like a 5-page list of different grants that work well with the cap, and any one of those is fair game. But we just have to assess timelines, make sure that, you know, their funding start-stop lines up with the cap block grant, and make sure that they do work well together. Some work well, some will work, we just have to make sure and relay that information onto the landowner or the government agency that's receiving these grants to say, okay, we have a 6-month window to execute this project. So we have to be quick and prompt to make sure that funds don't expire to get it done. And that's where we kind of help on this side, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and can be the bad cop, like I said earlier, if we need to twist some arms and elbows to get it across the finish line. Other questions?
Any other questions for Jordan? I want to thank you for your presentation and the work that you're doing on behalf of our county. So,
Well, thank you for having me, guys. I'll be here if you guys have any more questions. Thank you.
we're moving on to item number 6, development applications.
Good morning. My name is Tom Gisson. I'm a planner with Stewart Group, who is under contract with Blair County to perform some of the reviews. This is also my first meeting with Blair County, but I do have a lot of experience in other municipalities, states, etc. The first application on the agenda is Amerway Canopy Addition. This is located in the city of Altoona. The addresses are listed variously as 3701, 3709 Beale Street. It is within the Altoona County, city of Altoona's Industrial Flex Zoning District. Vehicular access to the site is from 38th Street via Beale Avenue. The application was submitted. The application is for site plan approval. It is a relatively limited addition to the existing site, which appears to have been a manufacturing and industrial use for a very long time. The applicant is proposing to add a 4,089 square foot canopy to the side of the building. This is the subject site. The subject site supports industrial manufacturing structure supported by, as you can see, a lot of open air, scattered storage and materials. The site is 4.4 acres in size. Railroad tracks are situated immediately to the east of the site, over there. This is, there are industrial uses kind of running this way. There are more residential uses over there. The application is proposing to construct the canopy around the corner of this building, which is, there is only one building on this site. And per the applicant's narrative, the applicant is seeking a no exposure certification from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And this application is in support of their application for that certification. Essentially, the canopy This is now a storage area around the building, as there are others. The canopy is designed to deflect precipitation from this area where they store certain materials that in their application to Pennsylvania DEP, it is better if they are not directly exposed to precipitation. So it's meant to shed it off of those materials. For the record, we are not reviewing, it's not really in our purview or expertise, the application to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. That is their responsibility, their area of expertise, but this is being done in support of that application. I want to go back for a second if I could. This is the site. The canopy would be, I'm trying to put it into a little bit of context here, right here. There is a line, a lot line, somewhat jagged, that separates this lot from this lot, but they are both used by the same owner and for similar purposes. I raise that because from the plans that we can see, it is unclear if this canopy, it's a jagged line, as you can see from the building, but whether the canopy may, I emphasize may, extend beyond the 15-foot side yard setback. Just can't tell. The line width is too thick to be able to see on the plans that we received. It's not a big, it's not a major issue, and it's easily resolvable. They could adjust part of the measurement and get around this little area where the lot line jumps. But it is something that we recommend be clarified, just so that you aren't creating a non-conforming condition that didn't exist there previously. The other thing I'd like to mention here is, since this is the location of the canopy, Beale Street is over here, railroad tracks there, it's a very limited addition to an existing site, an existing structure, and because of its location, it's also not particularly visible or noticeable from off-site, from off of the property. Regarding impervious surface coverage, which is a concern for everyone where you have, if you're going to increase impervious surface coverage, because that tends to shed rainwater, potentially affecting neighboring properties. That is not the case here, according to the applicant, and that should be confirmed. But the ground under there, which is used for storage, is currently pavement and compacted crushed stone, so it's already impervious. You're basically taking a roof, which is impervious, placing it over the ground, which is also impervious. So we don't see that that's a significant impact.
May I ask a question on that, just for a second? I would think, in general, roofs are entirely impervious. I mean, the goal of any roof would be not to allow any moisture underneath, whereas compacted gravel, macadam, etc., it would be relatively impervious, I would think. You know, the water that would now fall on the canopy would all be redirected versus what would land on the macadam and or crushed stone. A lot of that would lay there and dissipate, or potentially some of it would even get soaked in, I would think. Is that accurate?
I think it depends on there are definitions of impervious surface areas for the purposes of regulation and maximum impervious surface areas. There certainly can be different levels of what could infiltrate into the ground. But from a regulatory point of view, from local land use regulations, certain items are identified as impervious, others are not. Macadam or pavement is generally viewed as not pervious. due to the fact that rainwater would typically flow off of it long before it could get through there. There are, wouldn't have been used here, there are forms of pervious macadam or pavement that are used in certain areas where stormwater management is a large concern. Maybe expansion of driveways. There are also certain kind of crushed stone that's not compacted that can be used that is pervious, but is not designed for high traffic. For instance, a catering facility might have the required number of parking spaces paved, all the rest of it, because it's going to be a high traffic area, and then they might have some additional overflow parking for very large events. I don't want to pave it and create more storm water runoff, but you don't want to just have that parking be on raw ground or grass, which wouldn't hold up well and could create other problems. So you're correct, but I think from a regulatory point of view and with regards to this site, the amount of area in the site and the way and the ground, it is not a significant adverse impact. You certainly could recommend that the city of Altoona get more information on exactly what's on the ground, how much is pavement, what the other condition is, and have someone look at how pervious or impervious that area is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Certainly.
Has this been submitted to the city of Altoona for review?
I'm not sure what the process is.
They review it at the same time as us, so this will be on your next meeting. We usually review it first and then it goes to the city. So it'll be on the city's next meeting.
But yeah, I think with the idea being that you don't want them reviewing it entirely without having received your input first, so that they can consider that in their application. But is that correct? Yeah. Are there any other questions on this application? Our recommendations, oops, go back and forth here. Our recommendation, I shouldn't say recommend approval. We recommend for your consideration and for the city of Altoona's consideration, approval subject to completion of the municipal review and any additional information that might be garnered at that more detailed review. Mentioned the possible technical infringement on the side yard setback. And as you noticed here, to your question, it's the applicant's representation about this impervious surface, and recommend the city consider and confirm that. Even though, again, given the size of the site, the location surrounded by so much concrete and pavement, the impact is comparatively negligible. But if they're going to state that and it's going to be looked at in that way, it is probably good to take a look at it. It may be visually obvious, or it potentially could require a core to be dug and look at what the material really is. And so that concludes the presentation here. Is there anything else any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions as it relates to the Hammer Way proposal?
I have one question.
Yes.
Anyway, you're probably prolonging this. And this is just a general question, maybe applies to a lot of things, but the existing building right now, I'm not sure if it has a rainwater gutter collection system and discharge. And if the canopy, I guess what I'm asking is, does it matter if the canopy, the water is being discharged, I guess, across the total area of that canopy versus being collected by a gutter system and then being discharged into one particular area?
That's a
Is that
very
an
good
issue or not?
That's a very good question. I've looked at some street views of the building, but I cannot recall whether they had gutters or whether it was just discharging.
And I know in this particular instance that the owner owns the property. I'm just looking at if this were a situation where the property right next door to that was a different owner, and that rainwater is being discharged perhaps in a different way than what it was previously, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think those are very good questions. This site is relatively flat. The owner does own the adjacent property, either as in the exact same entity or a similar one, sometimes done differently so that lot mergers can't be forced upon them. But it is in this area with the two buildings in there tightly. The south of the site has a much more open area. This is a very old use, and as I'll get to in another application, where impervious surface area or parking setbacks or the likes are pre-existing, what we call pre-existing non-conforming conditions that were in place long before the zoning, or it could be a minute before the zoning ordinance was approved and the regulations were approved. Those are grandfathered or vested rights. Doesn't mean it can't be looked at, doesn't mean the power of persuasion can't be done, it doesn't mean a lot of things like that can't be done. But you do have to, one should recognize that property rights, this whole balance between property rights and regulations, and that is a pretty universal thing, that if you have if your house was close to the road, it's 1800s, the road was narrow, they widen the right of way, you are not, you're non-conforming to the front yard setback, but unless you create an addition to the building that is within that setback, thereby aggravating the condition, it's a pre-existing condition, which adding to the back would not be. Is that? Okay.
Other questions?
I'm sorry.
Concerns for this particular project? So what I heard, to summarize, is that Stewart Group is recommending an approval with two essentially call-outs, one being a lot line clarification and one being the stormwater review. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the review particularly, it could be an entire review, but I'm not sure that it, from a regulatory position, and I don't know. So, but it may not rise to the level of warranting referral to the Blair County Conservation District. But for this given area here, a site visit and then, if necessary, additional testing could be done. Again, and I don't take stormwater runoff lightly, this is a relatively small area that has been identified as impervious and is certainly impervious to some degree. But I think looking at that and having that clarification, not through the Blair County Commission, but the city may want to take a look at during a site walk.
Do we have a motion either to approve with those recommendations or concerns, or do we have a motion to reject?
Make a motion to approve with the recommended comments.
Would they be conditions?
What's that?
They would be conditions for approval?
I'm not sure that we could maybe take it to that threshold, but that's not been our history. But
We can't do that.
yeah,
We can't make, we just provide an advisory review. Ultimately, the municipality has the final say. So the city of Altoona would provide the regulatory review. We can say, this is our recommendation to do this, but ultimately, the city makes the final call on what happens.
Yeah.
They can listen to us or they can disregard us entirely.
that sounds right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't really have maybe the right to provide a conditional approval. We would give an approval with recommendations, or we could even reject it, but with those conditions explained. But They still have the right to approve it without us. We're just making a stronger statement at that point, so.
So what you're reviewing it for is whether the development is consistent with our comprehensive plan, not whether it's, a viable, that is the yes or no question, is it consistent with our comprehensive plan? And in this case, I believe it is consistent with our comprehensive plan. So that's what it's being reviewed based on.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve with those recommendations noted. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on. Number 7, excuse me.
The application for number 7 is it involves Blaze Alexander Hyundai expansion, which is composed of, it's a major site plan review. The expansion is composed of 2 areas, which you'll see in a minute, but just to be clear, the existing building is 17,000 square feet. There is an expansion of about 5,900 square feet to the building itself, expanding the interior of the building so that to make it more useful for whatever it is they need to. We don't typically look at their business needs. The other addition is much smaller, roughly where this white car is, 150 square foot shed. It's identified as battery storage. Again, we don't look at it, and I don't like to speculate. It may have to do with isolating car batteries that are flammable and are not addressed. You don't want to try to put out a car battery fire in the same manner that you put out a wooden structure, because it can make it worse, using the use of water. But those are the 2 major parts of the proposal, but there are additional items. This property is located in the city of Altoona at 101 Pleasant Valley Road, southeast side of Pleasant Valley Road, between South 1st Street and South 2nd Street. It's an existing automotive dealership, again, appears to have been an existing in that use for a very, very long time. It is a site that is almost entirely paved over, or largely paved over, or the building. It has a 95.8% impervious coverage. 65% is permitted under your code. Once again, as long as they are not aggravating or making worse the condition, that is a grandfathered or vested right. And they are, it's not impervious coverage nonconformity may be permitted as a pre-existing vested right. The expansion will be in this area, and this can get to your question from before, was about whether it appears you're not increasing it because you're trading roof for pavement. The primary access to the site is on South 2nd Street. This area up here is not shown as an access, but in fact it is, and not the kind you want. All of the pavement just touches all of the street, leaving it kind of a free-for-all wherever people want to pull in or pull out. They are addressing that.
In this plan, they're addressing that?
Yes, yes, I will get to that in a moment. Again, this is showing the addition specifically, and the smaller addition in the existing structure. They are also adding new landscaping. The site is very bare bones by today's standards. Putting in some new landscaping, sidewalks, walkways, and a vehicle display pad, which is kind of a little mounted up thing that would exist there. You've seen them elsewhere where they've got the car up a little bit for the traffic to be able to visually inspect. And there's some landscaping by that. They are also doing site consideration. The applicant is proposing, I should say first off, this is a subsurface stormwater detention system, which is essentially, and I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but it's basically a large perforated pipe that allows the water to be captured from from other areas, put into there. It has an overflow discharge pipe to the stormwater system in the street. But its idea is it fills up there unless it gets to the overflow level. These holes allow that stormwater to percolate into the ground beneath the pavement. The applicant is requesting a waiver to permit the percolation tests for this underground detention area to be delayed until the start of construction. They requested this, they said, because there's a front door here, and to be doing all of this right where they're operating would be a hardship of some sort that they don't want to experience. Generally, you would want to do this before you design and place the system there in case groundwater is too high in this location, percolation rates, which is the ability of the soil to pick up and distribute water. Percolation rates typically can be too slow, meaning a clay-like soil prevents the absorption. They can occasionally, and I had one with this, they can be too fast. In Newtown, Connecticut, the Sandy Hook area is identified as that, and it's wells and septics, and there's a separation distance, but if the percolation rate is too fast, that septic will not have a chance to have been adequately treated before potentially dropping into your drinking water well. But they're requesting that be delayed until they begin construction. We would recommend consideration of, if you are inclined to, oops, maybe I'm talking too long. If you're inclined to grant that waiver, or if you're inclined to recommend the city grant that waiver, then it should be subject to doing that at the immediate start of construction. You could also recommend that they don't grant that. It's really not I help you? It's really a judgment call, that's what I was going to say, as to what you want to do. They have said, they have made the representation that they could put in some sort of curtain drains or swales in the event the water level is too high. They have a lot of area that they could also put this in. But in any case, typically you want to see it done in the beginning, but they're requesting this waiver.
So say that again, that's their backup plan if it doesn't perk?
They haven't said, their backup plan was that they said they could put in certain curtain drains or a curtain drain, which is like a trench, so as water moves towards it, it hits this trench filled with rock, and then the easiest path for the water to flow is down the trench and away from the item you're trying to keep dry. It's often done in homes where you might have a water table and a slope coming up and it's going into the basement, you build a curtain drain, get it around the house.
So they'll present that backup plan to the city when they ask for this waiver or this?
They've not proposed any backup plan at all. I was just mentioning that if it turned out that it didn't perk, then, it didn't pass the percolation test, then you would probably have to come back in, potentially for a site plan amendment, potentially being approved by staff, depending upon what they include in the regulations. But it's always nice to get everything done beforehand, but it is also not an uncommon request, because, especially in a situation where maybe tearing up an area that they're using for as their entry. So it's really a judgment call. We don't have a position on the request for that waiver. While we're just getting this back up, that's okay. There is an additional, in addition to the impervious surface pre-existing non-conforming condition, they are, it'll be better when I can pull this up, there are requirements for setbacks from parking areas from the street right of way of 10 to 20 feet depending upon the classification of the street. size, corridor, local, etc. They currently have their parking in one area is right up against the property line. They are proposing to continue that, I think in part because the building is coming in and therefore they may not have turning maneuverable room and they would like to keep that relatively close to the building's front door. They are also in that area, they are, I believe this is First Street, but they are providing new sidewalks in the public right-of-way and a landscape buffer between the parking and the it goes parking, sidewalk, landscaping, and then the travel way. So they are proposing that, which may have some buffering approach to this pre-existing condition. So it is not something that we would have a recommendation for against. It does seem to be a reasonable taking an existing condition and making it better. But again, you can make it better, you can just say, we don't want it there. But it's again pre-existing, so I think the idea is that they've done some mitigation to reduce the impacts and also providing the public benefit of sidewalks and landscaping, a tree lawn essentially between the sidewalk and the property line. Yes.
Have they given any calculation to what the retention system that they're proposing would reduce the stormwater by?
They may have, and that would be normally reviewed by the Blair County Conservation District. So we did not look at that. We got some generic plans of the piping, storm drain inlets, outlet going to the street, and the size of it because of the size of the pipes and whatnot. But that has not been provided.
That's going to be important moving forward. My understanding, I sit on the ISC board as well, and the new volume reductions are requiring 88% of the pervious surfaces to be addressed with stormwater mitigation. So those plans would help credit the city of Altoona for those.
Okay. Yeah, I do not know, and you might know whether that is required when you have a pre-existing condition. It's not making an impervious area as large.
Well, I think it's a benefit being
No, I don't disagree. I'm not
Yeah.
just
being a
saying.
non-conforming site already that's 95% impervious. Adding some stormwater mitigation to that will help with the future credits.
Absolutely. And yeah, I was just kind of the regulatory, technical, whether it is required or is just a benefit. I'm not sure, but I absolutely agree. It's a benefit. What was I here? Sorry. Now, wait a minute, I think I got it here. This area here, I'll go back for a moment, where they have the parking that goes right up to the public right-of-way is in this location. And what they are proposing to do is the improvements that I described, the sidewalk and tree lawn and sidewalk area there. And they're making curbs, the rest of it. So that is where the parking currently and is proposed to exist right up to the public right-of-way. The site, you can tell the differences in the color of macadam, but essentially there's no, one flows right into the other without any curb or gutters. And this is a detail of that area where the cars are up. This is the property line that you're seeing here, but they are putting the sidewalk, which is typically done, the sidewalk, and then a landscape tree lawn area within the public right-of-way. And let's see, quickly. I think I'd like to go back for just 1 second. Again, the situation is similar here. This looks like it's more vehicle storage, flows right in there. What they are proposing to do is put a landscape tree lawn landscape buffer in this area and some curbing to purposely define the entrance access into one area, not just a free-for-all, as I said before. They're not proposing a sidewalk, and this would be up to in the typical sense, this would be up to the city of Altoona whether it's acceptable. It's recognizing it's an improvement. They're proposing simply on the macadam in that area, which is protected by the tree lawn, that they're going to provide striping in that area. It is in the public right-of-way. You could recommend something more. It's an existing condition, and it's certainly making it better, if not ideal. Ideal in the sense that if this was new construction, we would without a doubt not be saying you need to do more, but that's not the case. This is what I stated before about the recommendations. The city should actually provide information on whether those are non-conforming, pre-existing, vested conditions. I suspect they are. Blair County Conservation District, we're recommending that it be reviewed for erosion and sediment control and drainage. The city, that sidewalk I mentioned that's simply striping on paving is acceptable. And there are certain technical details that are outlined in our longer review letter that we're recommending that they request those items. With the understanding, by the way, we don't get everything that the city has received, so they may have been provided, which is not in a different set of documents for some reason. Any other questions on this?
Hearing none, you can see on the screen that the recommendation from Stewart Group is to approve with those 4 recommendations. Do we have a motion to approve with recommendations, or would we prefer to reject this?
This complies with the county comprehensive plan? Yes.
Yes. This is I'm sorry, I should have said it's a commercial corridor zone, which is specifically the more intensive and designed for this type of use. There are other uses, competitors maybe, right, or different brands up and down the street for them.
Are these recommendations included in your handout?
Yes.
I don't see them.
We received in the packet doesn't have the recommendations.
Yes, it's the second one. It's in your packet and it was in the email agenda packet. It's the second development review.
Yeah, you should all have, it's a 3 pages table. So close out and it doesn't have to.
I'd make that motion.
I don't see it.
Do you want that motion?
They don't list the recommendations.
They just list the
They
comments.
just list to say the last. Am I correct? The last, I'm looking at the document that we got, which is a 3-page. And number 6 on page 3, the last paragraph, that says this review has identified the municipal level concerns with the proposed plans. However, if the application satisfactorily address these, the project, that's the only thing. We didn't get the actual bulleted breakdown of what the recommendations were.
Okay, then
Is
that's.
that in the document? Is that in it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm
that's
not missing
all of
that.
the comments that he went
Okay.
through are in this document.
Or in that same
So his-
document I'm talking?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they just make specific references
Okay.
to what parts of the code,
That's under
So that's
comments.
the,
That's all comments.
Okay.
okay, that's under the,
It's under the comments.
Okay.
That's the bottom of page one.
okay. Very good.
Dawn made a motion to approve with recommendations. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, moving right along. Number 8, please.
Number 8 is located in Blair Township. It is the Mattern Woods subdivision, which was referenced in an earlier comment from the public. This is located in Blair Township. It's on the north side of Nuri Lane, to the west of the Winds at Mattern Orchard Assisted Living Facility, west of Hollidaysburg. This Greystone Hollidaysburg LLC is the applicant. It constitutes a major subdivision. The applicant is proposing 22 to subdivide the property into 22, the 22 acres site into 13 residential lots as shown there. Those would be supporting single-family home development. This is a picture of an aerial of the site, same site. Site is undeveloped land covered with a mixture of vegetation and slopes gradually upward from south to north. The subject site maintains frontage on Nuri Lane, Beachable Lane, and Robert Dale Drive, which are, wait a minute, yeah, I think it's here. It is here, and then the other one is just the end of that roadway. As such, what the applicant is proposing is not to construct any new roads. They would have driveways, but they are proposing to, all of the proposed lots would have direct access to a public street. The lots are consistent with the neighborhood. These lots are actually a little bit larger than the ones around that. The reason for that, I don't know. It could have been to avoid having to build roads. It could have been just their preference. It could have been their marketing determination. Whatever it is consistent with the surrounding residential character of the area. I should have had that one up first. And the applicant may be required to construct a water line, one or more water line extensions, and we'll have to put in sewer laterals. The area is served. The area is served by public water, potable water, and sanitary sewage. The plan we received is a little blurry. It wasn't enough that we couldn't do the review, but we request that, and you can see that, I think, on the plan. Oh, maybe you can't, but we are, I'll go over the second and third first. The subdivision plan we received was blurry. We recommend the township require that a clean, signed, and sealed submission be reviewed. All material specified in the saldo should be provided. The last item is kind of the most important, which I mentioned, is that the applicant is planning to vacate Holiday Hills Drive, merge this undedicated right-of-way into proposed Lot 13, and to provide an access easement in favor of the Winds at Mattern Orchard. The applicant should clarify this. This action may require a lot line change, subdivision, and it certainly would require easements, probably involving Blair Township, the assisted living facility, and the owner of the property. And we recommend with all such easements that they be recorded, because sometimes these things can be lost on a new buyer or whatnot, but should be found when somebody's buying and doing a title search. So to go back, let me just go back here. That is actually down here in Lot 13. There is, I wonder if I got it on the aerial. Let's
I have a couple of
I went by it,
questions.
but that, the assisted living facility is located here. So, yeah, there we go. It's actually located just off the street here. It has an access way or an undedicated road there. They're proposing to merge it into the lot, which is here, and they are proposing to then grant the assisted living facility with an easement. Obviously, at least three parties are involved with that. Yes.
So, knowing this piece of property well, this was 30 years ago. This was all an orchard, so it would fall into the area of the, farmland preservation, that overall. But the Hollidaysburg community, I think, to speak towards Mr. Nail's concerns, that entire area has been developed. I don't see any stormwater mitigation plan. At least we haven't addressed it here today. Is there any plan for stormwater mitigation on those, from that 22 acres of mostly scrub brush and forested area?
There is, and again, we didn't have quite the details. It's on this plan or one of the different sheets. But this appears to be a lot, that this lot would be dedicated to some sort of stormwater retention or retention system. But again, we did not review that. That should be reviewed by, I think it's a Blair County Conservation District, with a full stormwater management report, determine if there's any missing runoff, which presumably, even though the impervious surface is relatively small here, lawns and that type of area have a higher runoff coefficient, runoff more water than does the vegetated condition that it's currently.
Is that a automatic procedure, or should we make a comment that we need to have adequate stormwater review on that?
I believe it's standard, but I will yield to the, okay. Yes, it's standard. It's part of the review process required, part of the required review process.
Correct, but it doesn't hurt to point it out that this is an environmentally sensitive area with a history of, affecting a flood-prone community. So I think it is important to say we need to exhaust all measures to ensure that the stormwater is not causing undue hardship onto, surrounding communities. I think in the past, Hollidaysburg has tried to work with Blair Township specifically on these, this specific community's stormwater management issues, and has not really had a productive response from Blair Township. So I think this is a really important instance for us to advocate for intermunicipal cooperation to look at something as important as this.
Yeah, like I've said before, I'm not opposed to improving our areas, but I don't want to do it at the harm of our neighbors. And I think we need to add some very strong language that, although it's may not be appropriate for us at the Planning Commission, but there needs to be significant studies of the stormwater and the impact. And speaking to what the commissioner had said, this area is a prime example of how farmland, there's probably, if that's 22 acres, there's probably 100 acres behind that have all been removed from farmland, and they contribute to the stormwater of their lower lying friends in Gaysport, which is a real concern with ditch lines that are now streams that weren't designed for that.
I agree with that capacity.
Was there any infiltration testing done on that proposed site at all or provided?
I do not know, because they weren't putting in any roads and they weren't putting in septic systems. Presumably they would do some of those on a lot by lot basis, but the improvements would be limited to the individual lots themselves. So, and if there were, it might have been done a while ago. Not that geology changes at a rapid pace, but water levels could rise or fall, likely rise, subsurface water levels due to upstream, upslope increased drainage. So I think that's something that can be looked at. Again, it's not, if they were doing a subdivision with dedicated roads and all the rest of it, trenches for utilities, that would be certain, I'm not minimizing this in any way, but that would be a much larger concern because the impact would be substantially larger. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be done here.
Mackenzie, and you may be able to answer this, is there an appropriate measure for us to wait to give our approval till we see the stormwater, or is that not something under our purview?
I can say that, in the past, for situations extremely similar to this, for major subdivisions where we're reviewing like house developments, so they're not really providing us the level of detail that they would for any other major development. We have requested additional information. We've said that this is consistent with our county comprehensive plan pending, additional stormwater review, pending an additional stormwater review from the county conservation district. There are a lot of ways that we could go about using, different language to express the same thing. But we certainly can make it known that there are environmental concerns that the township should address prior to moving forward with the application. Or we can straight up say it's not consistent. They can still develop it anyway, but we could say it's not consistent with our county comprehensive plan, because in our county comprehensive plan, there is information about preserving agricultural land, there's information about, improving stormwater management and intergovernmental cooperation, specifically on the issue of stormwater management. So there are multiple ways that we can go about the development. Typically, I would say that a development like this, it's pretty standard, but generally is consistent with our comprehensive plan, but pending those things and pending an additional environmental review, because I didn't get to see if this is prime ag soil, potentially conservation easement. If it is, that's a great argument for why it would not be consistent with our comprehensive plan.
Yeah, well, my thoughts are this is a prime example of a 22-acre lot, but overall that entire property has been developed, in small parts, 22
Exactly.
acres here, 20 there, 50 there, 60 here. Before you know it, in 10 years, the owners of property down below there are saying, how in the hell did this happen? So my opinion is that we need more information to move forward with this. At least that's just my observation, that, doing this is not fair. And as a Region 5 representative of both Blair Township and Hollidaysburg, I can see the disconnect between residents of a borough being forced to accept what a township, adjacent to them has given. So those are just my concerns. I would like to see some more plans with the floodwater abatement, the stormwater management, and I think the residents of Gaysport deserve that. They deserve to have a clean plan that's not a blurry plan. I have my own thoughts as to why they didn't want to put the money into making this a larger subdivision with roadways and stormwater mitigation, which gives me a level to pause and say, hold on, if we're doing that, what are we doing? The worst things to see are retention ponds that weren't designed well, and they're the driest damn places that you can find in a rain event. So I wouldn't want to sign my name onto that until we see more. That's just my opinion.
He would also have the option, he could do the retention on each individual lot itself. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I think that's something there that I think that everybody's aware of the stormwater runoff, but there has to be something done to facilitate moving forward, to make it a little bit easier on the developers, because they know about the stormwater problem, and the engineers, most of us here are not engineers, so we can't really understand what stormwater is going to be or whatever. That's why we have to rely on the engineers to go ahead and, as being a former retired contractor, there has to be something done to ease when people want to improve things and develop things. I mean, we can't be the first one that was brought up there about the canopy addition. Well, there's guaranteed there's no stormwater management on that because how long ago was it built? So, I mean, I think that that's my opinion, that stormwater's definitely gonna be addressed there because he has to get it approved. And he's just trying to get something that's gonna work there.
So I think the options, for our planning commission would be to either approve the proposal with a strong reservation recommendation that relates to stormwater mitigation plans, or we could reject the proposal with the recommendation that we need to see the details of the stormwater, because you didn't receive any details, it sounded like, so.
No, I did not.
So, us rejecting it doesn't prevent Blair Township from approving it, but it certainly puts on record that that's a legitimate concern, so.
If I may, one thing, and it's going to be dedicated to the township, but also when you do have a detention basin like that, any detention basin, if you're doing a very large development of townhomes and whatnot, you always have to have a maintenance plan too, because these basins will, over time, tend to silt over and no longer perform as they're supposed to. They won't be able to capture because they used to be 5 feet and now they're 2 feet deep.
And Don, I'm right there with you. I don't want to unnecessarily delay expansion and growth to Blair County, but I also, keeping with my core values, I don't want to affect the neighbors that are there without having a good plan. So I'm going to make a motion that we reject the plan with comments that we would like to see the stormwater management plan to consider it again.
Can I make a comment before we get a second, a possible second in the motion? And I'm going to comment just simply on a process, and I'm asking our staff, but I'm hearing a couple different opinions expressed purely from a process standpoint of view. And with the limited experiences that I've had here already, it doesn't sound like we're requiring to have a stormwater management plan in front of us every time we approve these different proposals. And I'm just cautiously saying, I don't want to set a precedent to where we say, we've got to have all this information every time there's an approval is put before us. It sounds to me like in many cases we don't, other than say, we already know that it's being the conservation district and the municipality and everyone is addressing it. So from a process standpoint only, I don't want us to start moving out there to where we say, well, we don't want to approve this because we don't have this information, that kind of detail on this plan. And I just can see us getting really tangled up if we start going into that level of the weeds on every plan. I think we need to express very strongly, as we said, the issues of the stormwater mitigation, the review. Especially what I heard was intergovernmental cooperation seems to be an issue here also. So I think if we could put those types of things in to that again. I just wanted to make that comment before we.
They're pretty much already there though, because his engineer would give it to the township, and there'd be a different engineer that would review it again. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple levels of engineers that are going to go through for the stormwater. Because the township would have somebody that would have to review it.
So what I will say that's different about this specifically, as opposed to a normal development, which is why we thought it kind of rose to the level of being brought here, which clearly that was the case. For a subdivision, you guys typically wouldn't review that, right? Even if someone was building a new house, that typically wouldn't come here. Those are pretty standard. However, for a major subdivision like this with all of these new houses, that is something that needs to be addressed, and we can't rely on individual homeowners or the individual property owners to be able to mitigate that on a personal basis. There needs to be, like Tom said, a maintenance plan for the actual property. And typically those things are submitted to us for major developments. In this case, it wasn't submitted to us because there's no real development plan for the building of 13 houses, because each one has its own blueprint in its own plan. However, I did request any additional information, I just never heard back from the engineer. So I think in this case, I agree, should be a precedent and is in our required submission materials to have stormwater management and an erosion and sedimentation control plan submitted with major developments. In this case, it was overlooked because it was, like, the nature of the plan was a major subdivision rather than a major development. But more detail clearly was needed for.
My concern, knowing some of the local processes, this may be the only time that this project's looked at how many different neighborhoods and how many different municipalities are impacted. When this goes back to the township, they're gonna look at it, this is how we would look at it at Duncansville, through a narrow lens of, does it meet Duncansville's requirements? Does it meet Duncansville's specific, ordinances? I don't know that, and maybe we could put a recommendation that they, work with the residents of Gaysport, but we're really at a loss then. And again, they have the ability, even if we reject this, to say, thank you for rejecting that, but we're moving forward with it anyways, which puts it, but I think we need to take some significant steps and understand the farmland impact and the entire region that we're looking at.
So we have a motion on the floor to.
Question, being a new member, so we only have two options, accept or reject, or could we defer pending the submittal
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
pertinent
Well,
information?
that could potentially be a function of rejecting, if we would like. If we approve it, we won't see it again. If we reject it, we don't have to see it again, but it could come
But
back
it's
to us.
ultimately up to the municipality whether or
Yeah.
not we see it again.
And if we defer, if we just say we're not gonna address that, we have automatic timelines so that they get automatic approval, correct? So there's a 45 day, if we say we're not doing anything with it, 45 days, it's just as good
Is
as
an
an approval.
Correct.
Where does that leave us? I'm not quite sure I understand.
What my thoughts would be is if we reject it, we would accept resubmission of it with, if we don't do anything and we defer, it's gonna get automatic approved. If we approve it, then it could go to the township and they handle it solely in the township. If we reject it, the township could override us, but they could also resubmit it to us and say, "Okay, we've heard your concerns, we understand why you rejected it. We'd like you to review it now with better plans."
And in my experience, every time we have ever, quote unquote, rejected something or said that something wasn't consistent and that we needed more information or wanted some things to change, in my experience, most of the time, they will submit a corrected plan with amendments made to us.
Okay, thank you, I understand. So the motion would be that we reject it and we would like to have submitted to us the stormwater intergovernmental coordination and the agricultural?
Yes.
Okay.
This, for point of clarification of this particular ground, even though it was previously agricultural land, it's not listed right now as prime agricultural land as far as our comprehensive plan goes.
I am not sure, I did not do the parcel mapping for this, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it's been under agricultural use for a period of time.
I will say removing that much forested land, no matter if it's
Oh, I'm
considered
not
prime
disputing that, I'm just saying,
Okay.
but it's not categorized as prime agricultural land, like when we had the solar farm
That
approval
was
the last
prime
meeting, that was actually prime agricultural
Correct.
land.
And I think those are the questions that need answered on a re-review of that.
So we have a motion to reject based on the lack of a stormwater mitigation plan or proposal, and with a recommendation to ask for resubmission. That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And one last point of clarification. I mean, we don't typically, we don't have, I mean, the Stewart Group is an engineer and you know, Mackenzie's background, but we're not in the business of really reviewing stormwater mitigation plans. I mean, that's a, you know, another discipline that we don't have in the room, at least not as a group anyway. So if it were to be resubmitted with the stormwater mitigation, we would still ultimately say, we want the conservation district to see it, and to utilize their engineers to either approve it or make recommendations. But at least we would have there would actually be one, which at this point, we're not aware that there is one. So does that sound correct to you, Mackenzie?
Correct. I do review the submitted stormwater plans. I am not an engineer, but there are some things that we do look for. But just specifically like what their BMPs are, what they're planning to actually do to implement, you know, stormwater mitigation. However, like I said, for this one, we don't know if they're going to be doing a detention pond. We don't know if they're going to be doing underground swales. We don't know. It could be anything. We'd like to assume that that's the case, but yeah, we'd like to see for sure to make an educated decision.
Yeah. And I think the primary failure of I'm sorry?
I said basically the plans were submitted and complete.
I don't, if I'm not mistaken, because it's a subdivision, it's actually not a requirement to create a stormwater mitigation, but since we're aware that there's the environmental concerns and all the issues and, you know, we're really requiring that they do have one, but it's not an automatic, and I think that would be why this is such a valuable discussion for Blair Township, is because, you know, if somebody just wants to take a piece of property and subdivide it into 2 or 3 parcels, that doesn't automatically mean that they have to have a stormwater plan. But this is a major subdivision, you know, at least, you know, 13, I'm not sure if is it actually considered a major subdivision?
Yes.
13 parcels, so
Yes,
you have
anything
13
more than
parcels on ground that we know is subject, prone to flooding. We want to see how that's going to be addressed, basically, or that it would be addressed. So,
Out of curiosity, if he would have submitted it at 4, 4, and 4, was it at 4 different times or 3 different times, would it have been a major subdivision?
So again, I think no, each one would be reviewed on its own. However, when we get submissions for subdivisions that are part of larger subdivisions, which happens all the time, like actual subdivided neighborhoods that are subdividing smaller parcels over time, we do consider those as like a wider, more regional project, just because we try to eliminate piecemeal planning, like the little bit being subdivided off at a time. So where like 100 acres goes down to 22 acres, goes down to now 13 individual parcels of, you know, 1.5 acres. So we look at those things and patterns over long periods of time. I think 3 submissions back to back for 4 subdivisions in the same neighborhood, I definitely would be flagging that as like a major, like I'd be like someone's trying to do something fishy and avoid like having to do the proper procedures for this. But I would just say that this is the first time we've received one this large since I've been here.
Yeah.
I think the largest I reviewed was maybe 8, but 13 is quite significant. So I'm thankful he submitted it all as one.
and if I'm not mistaken, that the numerical difference between a minor subdivision and a major is either 5 or 6.
5, anything more than 5
Okay.
parcels created at one time, 5 new parcels is considered a major subdivision.
And I think if I recall, and I might be mistaken, and feel free to correct, but if you take a 22-acre parcel and you split it into 5 pieces, and one of those pieces, let's just say, is the residual, or whatever you want to call it, is like 8 or 9 acres. If you go back 2 years later and say, we want to split this 8-acre parcel up, that does become a major subdivision. So they keep track of how large the parcel was to start with, and so there would be, even if you split it up, eventually it would reach that threshold. But this is the ideal time to, I think, to address this, not wait and see. So
One thing that I do see, another thing that probably should be pointed out, if you go back to that thing, they had the 22-acre parcel right here. the other vacant ground up above is actually in the borough of Hollidaysburg. Okay, so I'm just wondering, do they go ahead and do they allow provisions for future developing of the site? Do they extend the sewer line 100 feet to make sure, or have an easement that it could be extended into the next property? Because I know that was one of the facts when Pennington was trying to do something there, or that they had to cross that ground there to get up to the ground right above it that borders it as borough of Hollidaysburg that's undeveloped. I'm a little bit familiar with that area out there.
I would say ultimately, once again, intergovernmental coordination. We need to get all these people in the same room, which doesn't happen often. I'd like to see Hollidaysburg and Blair Township at the same table, and their water and sewer authorities discussing this, because I think that is it's an issue that obviously impacts both municipalities incredibly, and it's not something that either one can decide on their own. So I think we can certainly encourage that. That's part of our role.
Drusville probably would appreciate that comment.
Yeah, that's part of our role here, is to facilitate that intergovernmental coordination. So if we need to be the ones to bring them to the table, to say we'd like to sit down and discuss this issue as like a more regional project, we can certainly do that. We've done it before, and I think that that's a great forum to, you know,
It'd
start
be a
that
perfect
conversation.
forum if they resubmit this. Don, you and I both represent Region 5, so we could try to facilitate that meeting and get Blair Township and Hollidaysburg in the same room and say, what's your broader plan with the rest of Holiday Hills? At this time, should we be, you know, they had said they were gonna put sewage and water lines in. Should we be looking at, if, you know, this area is gonna be developed, extend that sewer line to that area, or put a right-of-way in?
Yeah, and even the capacity of those lines, you know, if right now they're building lines for 13 homes and down the road somebody's thinking they're gonna develop bigger, so. But, well, we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Or are we prepared to vote? All those in favor? Opposed?
No,
No, one against. So. Okay, moving forward.
Was that an appropriate comment I made about looking at the ground above there?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that gets overlooked a lot when we're doing, or like Mr. Esep said, when municipalities look at planning for their municipality, it sometimes can end up being pretty myopic, which this is the only forum where they would necessarily like have the opportunity to talk about it from a regional scope rather than just looking at the interests of Blair Township. So yeah, I think it's really important that Hollidaysburg enters the discussion on this.
And I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm 99% sure that that's Hollidaysburg borders that ground. Hollidaysburg owns that. That's Hollidaysburg.
I'm very familiar over the years with working on this specific parcel. That is Hollidaysburg.
Yeah.
You are correct. All right. So number 9 on your agenda are the staff level subdivision and land development reviews. These have been sent out to you, or to the, I'll say not to you all, but to the board members via email over the past month for your review. These are the things that don't typically rise to the level of being reviewed at our meetings. So these are things like minor subdivisions, minor developments. And this one specifically, you can see we were just talking about Red Tail Ridge, or we were just talking about other subdivisions. Red Tail Ridge doing a subdivision for where the little cul-de-sac is. They're subdividing that specific parcel off there. So that's what happens when we don't do it all at once. But yeah, these are ones that have gone out to you via email. If you have any questions on these, now would be the time to ask.
I do have a question, and this is probably just general, just out of curiosity. For the first one there, when they want to combine that property, what would be their goal for doing that, to change that around? That's the Sheets property, is that correct?
Correct. So they have, in the past, with their other parcels, the other sheets that they own, they've merged their lots because to eliminate setbacks for other, like they want to build something new on the property, but there's setbacks on the individual parcels that are part of the larger lot. So they're probably merging it to avoid those setback lines and to build something new there.
Just curious.
Might be a new, usually any new developments that we're getting now are like the car washes, the Sheetz car washes, the Sheetz drive-throughs. We'll be seeing a lot of those start coming through.
Okay.
Any questions on any of the staff level review materials that we received via email? Do we have a motion to approve staff level reviews?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Excuse me, who seconded?
Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Number 10.
All right, number 10 on your agenda are also the staff level reviews that were sent out over the past month. These ones are related to permitting, specifically ones that are submitted to DEP. They come through us to ensure that they're consistent with the comprehensive plan. Usually these are just a uniform letter that just says it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. One that I wanted to point out specifically, and one that I highlighted on the email that I sent out to you last week, was for Snyder Township, I believe. New Enterprise, Stone and Lime. They are applying for a permit for a surface water withdrawal modification. I have the actual letter in front of me. But again, this is for, sorry. Okay. They filed an application with the Susquehanna River Basin Commission for surface water withdrawal for a minor modification to withdraw up to 216,000 gallons per day from Logan Spring Run and add Logan Spring Run as a source of water for consumptive use at the Tyrone Forge Quarry location. That is on Birmingham Pike in Tyrone. I believe that is what that's what the permit change was. Typically we flag these just because they are related to drinking water, and again, these are intermunicipal, so they don't just affect the municipality where the permit is being applied for in, and this is usually the only forum where these types of permits get reviewed at all. So I did just want to flag that one. For consistency, it is a surface water withdrawal permit. Again, for this one, not a lot of, okay. New Enterprise usually knows when they're submitting for permits for Blair County or for Blair Planning. They usually submit a lot of information because they know that we'll request the additional information. So for this one, they didn't submit any additional paperwork or any additional information aside from just an affected area map. So when I reached out for additional information, once again, New Enterprise just sent me the same map that they had already sent me. So I just wanted to flag that one just in case any of the surrounding municipalities had any concerns or if anybody had any thoughts on that one.
Do you have that map that you could throw it up for us?
I can try. It's also very blurry.
We happen to have a representative from Snyder Township with us. So Jim, feel free to either ask questions or comments on this if it is a concern to you.
Actually, I'm not familiar with what you're trying to do at all.
That's what I'm saying. So this is typically the only forum where this gets reviewed. So even most times the municipality is the last to know.
And why would that be?
I can only tell you my opinion on that one.
Oh, please do.
The stone company is going to make more money if they keep you ignorant. if they keep you unknowing. So they're gonna make money whether you know or not, but it's more beneficial for them to tell you later after they've already decided for you. All right, so can you see this all right? You can see the Tyrone. This is, again, I tell you, this is the map that they provide me. I said, gotcha. All right. So this is what we have here, and then the affected area. This is the spring. What is this? Spring Run. This is the water. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get as close as possible. Oh, we do have. So we have 2 water sources that run directly through here, through both sides. I'll use my pointer. So this is the whole facility running along both ends. So I would say.
And where is Logan Spring as it relates to that map?
I'm so sorry. Right here? Oh wait, right here, right where it's pointing to, I believe. So again, in this instance, what we typically do is just flag these as being not consistent with our comprehensive plan, because they have the potential to have long-term impacts on the drinking water for major portions of the population. Once again, municipality and DEP can ultimately say that they've determined that it's safe to move forward, but we can make the recommendation as kind of a safeguard to say, hey, somebody pointed it out.
Jim, you might have a different comment than mine, but that Logan Spring runs into the Little Juniata River, which has been determined as really prime fishing. I think it even has a designation of a. So I'm not sure that removing 216,000 gallons a day, how much that might impact that area. You have any thoughts on that, Jim?
I agree wholeheartedly that, somebody needs to do a little more work on this.
Yeah.
You still have an area back in that, where that water would draw, but it's more to the south where you still have on-lot systems, not public sewer through areas of
Correct.
that zone. There's no public sewer through the certain portions of that area of Ironville. I mean, there was some at some point, but there was an extension to be done, and it did.
There's some public, some,
Some still on lot systems.
What would be the appropriate, if we had concerns and we weren't ready to just approve this, what would be the appropriate, course of action?
That's kind of what I look to you for. So I'm looking for additional recommendations. What I would say is that it's not consistent with our comprehensive plan, and that's the answer that goes to DEP, because that's what DEP is ultimately looking for, whether yes or no, is it consistent? If we say no, DEP will flag it and they'll do additional investigation to ensure that, well, maybe these claims are unfounded, or maybe we do have the proper resources to back it up and say, well, we did, do a study and determine that, 216 gallons per day is going to be fine. But that would be something that additional studies would need to show. We don't have that information, or at least I don't.
And you said the reasoning for pulling the water out was for consumption?
Correct.
So potentially, maybe.
They're blasting. They're doing limestone. I think limestone.
But that wouldn't be consumption, or is that consumption?
It's operational use on site. That's what it's for, part of the processing of New Enterprise at the quarry. And
They use a lot of water for dust mitigation.
Yeah, concrete. They make concrete there. So do we have a recommend? Any other members want to make have a recommendation, or Jim? Do you want to have any comment on this before we move forward?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling the same way you are on this, Todd. I do think that there should be a little more homework done on this, because that's a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be taken away, and I know I myself, as Snyder Township rep, I would like to understand a little more on it.
I can also submit this letter to you, to Snyder Township, and give you the opportunity to comment, so that I can, when I submit my comments, I can include comments from Snyder Township as well. I've done that in the past. In fact, with New Enterprise, I've done that in the past.
That would be great.
Thank you, okay.
Are we prepared to make a motion to, on this particular concern as it relates to Snyder Township's water withdrawal modification?
You could approve those and just basically table the Snyder Township one as a verbal comment in your, pull that one out.
Yes.
We can go that route as well. If there are no other concerns at the staff level review, we can approve all but that one, if you'd like. Do we have a motion to that?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's address the Snyder Township review request. Would we like to make an official either a rejection, or we can state the concern of maybe not fitting into our comprehensive plan or the county's comprehensive plan?
When we reject it because it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so a motion to reject with reservation to consistency to comprehensive plan. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Right. So number 11 on your agenda is the planning director's report. Dave is not here. He did send out a brief report by email to you all earlier this week, or to board members earlier this week, to kind of update you on what he's been working on. In your packets, you should also have a memo from Stewart Group, specifically in reference to the hazard mitigation plan. The hazard mitigation plan has been submitted to PEMA as of, I believe, Monday of this week. We've actually heard back from Ernie at PEMA, and he gave us a little bit of feedback on 4 things that need to be corrected, which, what is his name? What is his name? Ben. Like, what the heck? Which Ben and I have been in communication about wrapping up and getting those things submitted so that Ernie can do a final review next week. I will say, though, the hang up right now is FEMA, and that's what it says in the memo. We don't have nothing's really moving at FEMA right now at the federal level. So any kind of approval, any kind of anything is going to have to be waiting on them to get some funding and some directive moving through there. But we are as far as we can get with PEMA, just pending a final submission. But right now we got some pretty good feedback, like I said, working on Appendix C, which is the last part that has all of the documentation throughout the planning process, finishing putting that together, and we will be submitting that, which is great. I know that's the update that you all want to hear. In addition to that, or do I have any questions on hazard mitigation first before I move on to a couple other brief updates?
And you'll make sure that that's submitted tomorrow.
So,
Whatever you got from the store group, we'll definitely have tomorrow.
Ben has received, he's the one that works for Stewart Group. He has received Ernie from Pima's comments as of yesterday or Tuesday, and he's been working through them. I think his plan was to submit a final plan for review by the end of this week, but he and I also wanted to meet to go over some things. So I think it is ready to be submitted. I'm hoping that happens. But I wasn't sure if he meant this Friday or next Friday. But that being said, it will be submitted. I will make sure of that. And again, we can get Pima's review in the meantime, which is great and important for us. We will just be waiting on the federal level.
Will they
acceptance.
issue an administrative review that it's?
I am hoping so. That's what Dave seems to think, that we'll get like an approval pending adoption, at least from Pima, and then pending a FEMA review as well. So that's what we're hoping for. We haven't gotten much directive because the situation with Pima is with FEMA, is kind of unprecedented, but who's to say? So we're hoping to have all of that within the next week.
I just have one more.
Sure.
If Pima and FEMA do acknowledge that the plan is administratively correct, is there a potential to get coverage prior to some degree for reassurance at our end that we are covered in the interim should a catastrophic event occur?
Absolutely. Once these are approved pending adoption, they can be sent out to the municipalities for their review and be put on municipal agendas. Once the first municipality adopts it, then it's valid. It's a valid hazard mitigation plan. So just one municipality needs to adopt it once it's APA. Anything else on hazard mitigation? I have a couple things that I want to just run through before we move on, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything on hazard mitigation. Okay. I do want to point out to the board that we are coming into budget season. I believe April is the meeting that we will present the budget to the board.
May.
Oh, May. So what is...
We start talking about it in April. To
Oh,
get
so
things
this
done.
month, I apologize. This upcoming month is when we're going to be doing the meeting. We're going to be having you, our treasurer, in the office and meeting with you to go over our budgeting and get stuff ready. May is when we will present it to you for your consideration, but just kind of flagging that so that you have an idea moving forward, kind of where our priorities are going to be at, especially considering our budget shortcomings in the previous year. Additionally, and kind of going along with that and also hitting on what HT had mentioned earlier, our local share payments, which are what the municipalities pay into Blair Planning, that payment for 2026 is due at the end of March, and to date, as of yesterday, because that's when this was printed, we have 3 municipalities who we haven't received a local share payment from or a full local share payment from. 2 of those municipalities, Newry and Tunnel Hill, are very small. The change in local share between last year and this year is quite significant. It went from being, $100-something to now over $1,500. So that's quite a significant difference for a very, very small municipality. So that's what we're, assuming is the reason that we haven't gotten any information or any payment from them. We have received. Oh no, we haven't received any partial payment from them as well. And then Logan Township is the other municipality that we have not to date received a local share payment from. But yeah, and then additionally, Blair County, who is also someone who pays local share into Blair Planning, has also informed us that they are, I believe, withholding funding from Blair Planning because of for the local share. So I'm not sure, the papers that I have, that you should all have in front of you, these charts, that have the municipalities, that should reflect that information on there. I can try to answer some questions on this, but I'm not the finance person, but I can try. But yes, it's very important for us to, that's why, like I said, moving into this budget season is so important for us to flag, because we have quite a few budget shortcomings to overcome from this past year.
And we're going into the last quarter of our fiscal year, so cash flow is important.
Yes. Any questions on local share? I just want to throw in there for your consideration as well. We have quite a few municipalities who have expressed to us that they want their local share to be prorated, that they want refunds on their local shares because of our lack of rendering services, and additionally because we were closed down from, or partially closed down from October till mid-November. So a lot of our municipalities have reached out to us about getting that prorated potentially, and could also potentially be a reason that it's unpaid from some of our municipalities as well. And also from the county. We already addressed some of the concerns that came up during GAC, namely related to quorum and not having enough voting members present, and then allowing for delegation. This is something that I kind of initiated Dave to talk with our solicitor about, so that we can get some kind of clarification on this. Bless you. I'm desperate to have something to report back to you on this, because not a day goes by that I'm not hearing from a municipality that's asking, what are we doing? Which I think is good. I think that that's who needs to be holding us accountable, but they shouldn't have to be doing that. So I am really looking to get this resolved as soon as possible. I believe that's all of the updates that I had. Oh, another thing, sorry, one more. At GAC, another thing that was discussed is potentially delegating the development reviews in the event that the board can't meet for whatever reason. It was something that at our last board meeting, I believe, was tabled to be discussed with GAC. Upon discussion with GAC, it didn't seem like anybody was really positively responsive to that, or was really interested in entertaining the idea of us not having meetings regularly. So I think that that is the answer to that question. Anything else? Any questions for me before I turn this over to you all? Okay.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commissioners Forum, this is an opportunity for the commissioners themselves to either bring things up to the group or to comment publicly.
Todd, since we had tabled the issue of staff level reviews last meeting, I'd like to assert, I would like to reject that idea. Keep these reviews with the commission at whole. We've seen, we should be having meetings, and we've seen some very positive impact and very positive review of at least a couple of those revisions that we wanted to look at.
And that's consistent with the feedback from the municipalities that we received, I think. So.
And I'll make that as a form of a motion, please, if we need it as a motion.
We don't actually have it on the agenda today at all, so I don't know that we need to formally address it.
It's not on the agenda, but we might want to do that for the April meeting and put it on as old business, and then formally make your motion there.
I'll ask that that be included on the agenda.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Good idea. Thank you. Other business from the planning commissioners themselves? Questions from the media?
Before you start that, I do have one, and this is probably like HT's comment on this. Okay, I know he was at a meeting that that for the inter municipalities working together. Just wanted to see what your feedback was on that, what you think the response was or whatever.
For the GAC?
No, the one you were out of.
Oh, it was held at Prime.
Yeah.
It was good. There were municipal leaders, but more of the workers, not the elected officials, but it would have been for secretaries, managers, and that sort. It was hosted by the ABCD Court. And it was good. It was the first step, and it might grow into a more formal subcommittee. I'm not sure whether they're going to put the umbrella is going to be over that subcommittee, but there's been a lot of dialogue started within the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months between municipalities sharing and addressing concerns, shared concerns. You know, a lot of unfunded state mandates. We're watching a lot of legislation that's coming down that's affecting each municipality, and how we're going to address that. Maybe how we can all come together and speak with one clear voice, instead of just having the static of a lot of single voices addressing issues. I think it went really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the planning commission did not know about it.
No, we didn't.
Okay, and I think that that's probably something that I think that should be something the planning commission should know about if they're working with stuff if it's in Blair County. Do you agree with me on that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. The more people that are sitting around the table, I think you have the potential to get more things done, more actionable things. As a matter of fact, there's a representative from Blair Township, or by name, the secretary there, Cammie Billick. She had an unofficial, hey, everybody pick up your own tab. I got the room at Marzoni's. Let's sit down and talk about some shared concerns. So we actually have people doing that in our community. I say, staff level people in different municipalities getting together and talking about shared concerns on our own. It's happening organically. If somebody wants to take the reins and put that, and make that into an official, meeting or subcommittee, that's certainly something that I would be interested in participating in.
And I think that my main concern was I think the planning commission should be probably made note of those things happening. How I know about it, I scheduled to have them go to Prime Sirloin and have lunch, and an engineer picked up the tab. But I know that with what it was about or whatever, and I know HT was there.
But that also might be a good dovetail to doing the subcommittees under the GAC.
Took the word right out of my mouth, Sherry.
Yeah.
Because it's a shame that we didn't know, because that would also kind of feed into research on funding issues or funding mechanisms or pairing funding, even long-range planning in Mackenzie's court. I mean, there's definitely opportunities for us to hear from all of that. So just because it's not a high-level meeting and it's actually the people working on the grounds and the capacity, that's would be very beneficial, I think. Same, you think the same? For us,
I love the subcommittee ideas.
Yeah.
That you can get work done in between the every 6 month meetings.
yeah.
But facilitate that, you have to change the bylaws. To change the bylaws, you need a forum.
But I mean,
And there lies the problem. It's a circular problem.
yeah, until we get that coordinated, if you get the blessing from the rest of the group, if one of us or both of us could sit at that table, because we would have different functions, but still, that would be great to sit in on that.
I'll talk to our host. I know there's too many committees. There's a chamber subcommittee, community policy committee that I sit on. And it just seems that there are a lot of people that are sniffing around this idea, but it would really be nice if everybody who's doing this individually would get together. It's not lost on me that the reason each individual entity is doing this is to speak in one clear voice. There's a little irony to that, because we're all in small individual committees, subcommittees, and groups. Mm-hmm. But if somebody wanted to come in, take the reins, and do it, I'm not volunteering for that. I'm busy enough.
Come on,
I think another strong point. Don't you agree that it's sharing of expenses or sharing of somebody that has something that another township could use, whether they bill it to them or whatever, and share expenses to help help out everybody because everything's expensive.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if there was some type of cooperative agreement with neighboring municipalities for, you know, do you need 3 municipalities that all join have their own vacuum truck, you know, that costs $250,000. I know in Cambria County, I talked to a PSATS representative, Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors representative down there, who he's really advocating for the volunteer fire companies to share equipment. You know, why do you need 2 fire companies to join each other to each have, you know, 2 ladder trucks or 2 tankers? It's almost like they have too much equipment, is what he says. And that's, you know, an argument, but it falls in line with the issues we're having with EMS and regionalization of all emergency services, really. And that's a big question. That's front and center in every municipal forum I'm in. People are talking about, okay, can we have an EMS shortage? We have, right now, House Bill 2284, I think, has been proposed. Now, it's a weak rollout, but it's calling for to pay for state police coverage for your area. You know, which everybody right now pays for the state police.
Clearfield just went through that. Doesn't Clearfield want to get rid of their police force? Or is that there's a municipality?
Well, I think there's a regional department in Clearfield County that's facing some issues right now. I don't know well enough to comment on it responsibly, but I do know Frankstown Township, my township, relies solely on state police coverage. You know, every Pennsylvania resident pays a tax that pays for the state police that entitles you to that coverage. Now, if somebody chooses, like the Hollidaysburg Borough or even the Duncansville Borough, to have their own local police department, that'll enforce local ordinances, which the state police won't do. You know, parking enforcement, which the state police won't do. You know, targeted enforcement details that you have to request of the municipalities that the state police won't do. You can pay that extra to have that. But, you know, the argument of the townships is everybody already pays for the state police. Everybody's entitled to the state police. Why are you going to charge a municipality that doesn't have their own police department a second time? You know, why are you double dipping into our tax dollars, into our pockets, you know, to provide this service? And it's not going to be cheap. There's not a cost associated with this rollout, but the last one, which was about 10 years ago, would have cost Frankstown Township, with today's population, $1.5 million. You know, we're the last municipality in the county that does not have a municipal property tax. And we would not be able to sustain that if we had to pay $1.5 million for coverage. You know, a budget for a 24/7 department, properly staffed, you know, would be over $1 million. That also is not sustainable. So we would be forced into a regionalization. So we need to start having these hard conversations now while we can still shape the outcome, instead of being forced into a solution from Harrisburg, who doesn't know what our needs are in our own local communities. You know, we really need to keep the decision-making local in our municipalities. You know, and I know you talked about data centers earlier. That's another hot topic right now. I mean, the state wants to take over. When they took a run at statewide zoning, but how many years ago was that? 3-4 years ago, I think. It failed, luckily, because then that would take zoning away from municipalities. But what they came back with was, okay, large-scale energy projects, we're going to take those. So they're just kind of chipping away to get to the end result that they wanted with statewide zoning. And that's a problem, because people in Harrisburg that have never been to Frankstown Township, they don't know where the best place to put a data center is. You know, people in Frankstown Township do. Take the solar ordinance. We have a solar ordinance where we can put a solar farm. We have that because it was, you know, public meetings of residents of Frankstown Township. It was people in Frankstown Township that know the best place to put it. Because we created that, and we have it to what we want. I guarantee if the state takes over that kind of zoning and tells us where you can put it and where you can't, it would not be consistent with the product we put out. So that's just one example. I've gone on too much, sorry.
Henry, thank you.
Just one other thing. I think that as far as like the volunteer fire companies, I think they're working together some with as far as who they call for whatever. And I think there is, but that everything takes a pretty big word, and it's called cooperation. So that's the key. But I think you should be made aware, and whether you're running it or whatever, you should be made aware of some of the stuff that's going on, in my opinion.
Is this something that can be addressed with the regional outreach meetings that we're doing with the different, different
Yeah.
municipalities that are coming up? Because I mean, I know I think that would be great to have a representative from you, as well as their representative on the board, say, look, you have to send some people to get these things done to make it better. You know?
Maybe HT wouldn't be the chairman.
Trust me, my board keeps me busy enough, Don.
But I mean, that's something that we individually would have to do with the municipalities that we're representing.
Please
You know,
reply to your text right away.
Has anybody heard whether there's gonna be the 2 more appointments that they were talking about?
Yeah, Mr. Reese is back here. He's been approved now already at the commissioners meeting. That's Dave Reese.
Good.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So the timing of our meeting versus the commissioners meeting didn't align, so
Okay.
he came as a public member, but now he's part of the board. And then as far as Region 4, Catherine Williamsburg and Woodbury, we don't have a idea yet if they've got somebody in the talent bank to move them forward.
May I ask, since you introduced Mr. Reese, are you officially a commissioner or not until you're brought in next month? How does that, obviously you're not here at the table today, but.
It's my understanding that it will be approved today.
Yes,
At
we're
the
approved.
commissioners meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so not official yet, okay, until, well, maybe it is, but we don't know.
He was
Okay.
official at
It was
10
approved at 10
o'clock.
o'clock.
If they approved it,
They did.
They did.
Okay.
They-
okay, good news, okay, that's good.
You can come sit at the
What's going on right now?
Other forum, anything else from the commissioners? I have a suggestion or a request. I am not able to be at our meeting that is currently scheduled for April 30th. And I was wondering if there would be a possibility that we could reschedule that to the 23rd, if you had a different date in mind, or you can certainly go without me. But I'd love to be here if I could be, but I cannot be here on the 30th.
Yeah, we just, I know Dave's out the last week of April, correct, at the national conference,
Yeah, he's correct.
which is the 24th. Do we know if he's traveling the 23rd? Okay, so Dave won't be here, but we would just have the advertising expense to, move the meeting back, so we would just incur that advertising cost. And we would have to check if this room's available, if not.
And also just ensuring that we have a quorum for
Yes.
either day is the most important thing.
Right,
I'm happy to come either day as long as we have a quorum.
Yeah.
We just, so that's actually your determination.
Yeah, your call.
I can make it on the 30th, but not the 23rd.
I'm available either day.
I'm available either day.
I can make both.
I'm available either day also.
You are?
I am available.
I'm,
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Green, you are or are
I'm
not
available
available?
either day.
Either day,
Yeah.
okay.
And he is? Did you say he is?
Yes, I am available.
Okay. Dawn, are you?
In the ideal scenario that both Peter and I could be here, could we look at the 22nd or the 21st? Or even the 20th?
22nd is no good for me.
Me neither. Either of the other 2 days are fine.
What if you move
21st.
it back to like your last 27, 28, 29? Is that better?
I'm in Europe that week, so sorry.
21st would work for me.
But that only gives you.
Sherry,
I'm fine. with
21st?
21st, yeah.
21st,
It's good, yes.
That'll work.
21st, 21st?
I can call in. I'll be in Boston, so.
And what,
I mean,
Peter, 21st?
What's your opinion on normally, do you reschedule meetings or you just go if you know the quorum or whatever? So is it, I mean, I know he understands he wants to be here, but
Yeah.
might not work out, right?
Yeah, the February meeting is the only meeting we've ever backed up a week. You're at what, 3 weeks if we do the 21st?
So, so 10 days before the meeting is when we cut off the submissions for the month, so that we have enough time to review them. So if we back it up that much, we won't.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, we'd be cutting it off at the 10th, not leaving a ton of time for submission. It's doable and we can make it happen with that 45-day window. But I would say typically in this circumstance, keeping it the last Thursday is what we've done to avoid having that advertising fee, and then just determining if we have a quorum for that.
Well, we haven't found a date that everybody can be, so let's just stick with the 30th, and I won't be able to attend, and Mr. Green, if available, would run the meeting. So, okay, so we'll plan on sticking with the 30th. Okay, there's announcements posted. I don't know that we. And oh, I'm sorry. Well, your chance.
I just have one question.
Yes.
I need Tom's last name.
Oh, certainly, it's Gisson, G is in George, I, S is in Sam, E, N is in Nancy.
Thank you. Certainly, that's all I needed.
Thank you. If no other business announcements are posted, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Executive session.
So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Following our meeting, we're going to hold an executive session. I want to thank all of you that attended today, our guests and participants. I would ask that we would take a short break and reconvene at 11:15. And if those of you that are going to stick around and talk, if you don't mind, please give us the ring where we can.
Do we need to continue the meeting, go into executive session,
We
then
do
come
not.
out and adjourn?
No, this is a separate meeting.
So what's the purpose of your executive session?
Well, this is we're reconvening, reorganizing the board essentially, and
Are you going to come back and take any action?
we're not.
Okay.
No,
We're not allowed to.
So yeah, yeah,
You
just an executive.
You don't need your magazine.
So okay, motion and a second. All those in favor to adjourn?
Yeah, if you're gonna reorganizing the board?
I've already talked to the attorney about this. We have.
Okay.
I know what I'm doing. So, yeah. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.